So we just finished reading The Curious Savage by John Patrick. Patrick starts the play by asking the actors and the directors to not do an exaggeration of the people in the cloisters. And I just want to ask you guys, why do y'all think that he asked the actors to play the guests with a warmth and a dignity?
The foreword of the play, he writes, "A play comes to life only when the reader or actor is in sympathy with the playwright's intentions. The wrong interpretation of a play distorts its meaning. Overemphasis, where none was intended, destroys the delicate balance of values, and the play then becomes either pointless or in bad taste. It is important that the curious savage, that the gentle inmates of the cloisters be played with warmth and dignity. Their home is not an asylum, nor are these good people lunatics. Any exaggeration of these roles will rob them of their charm and humor. The whole point of the play is to contrast them with Mrs. Savage's children and the insane outside world. To depart from this point of view, for the sake of easy laughs, will rob the play of meaning, and both the performers and the playwrights will have failed in their purpose."
That's heavy.
Epic.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a whole lot.
Well, I mean, if I'll just jump in. What I kind of felt, especially at the very beginning of the play, the first act, the opening scene, you don't really know that they are at a mental institution. You just think these are a bunch of guests. That's what they're even called. They're just called guests. And there isn't anything that is like how he worded it, nothing insane about them, nothing that is over exaggerant that makes you think it's insane asylum. These are people who, are almost at the end of their treatment, and they're, almost normal, quote unquote, and they're calm and they just seem like normal people who are hanging out in a living room, and they're in their home and they're comfortable. And I think it kind of, for me at least, kind of gave me the sense of like the way society kind of portrays people that are in mental institutions, and it's like they're people too, and they have and deserve the dignity of being treated as people. And I think that is something that my character Ethel did really graciously when she entered, is that immediately she knew where she was. She knew she was being committed by her children. She was very aware of the bubble that she was entering, but she immediately treated these people like people with kindness. And I think kind of maybe that's what he was trying to show and do. Don't over exaggerate this. Don't make this like because you're trying to make a laugh or trying to get a joke in or try to make this some sort of crazy. It's just these are people too, and they need to be treated with dignity as well. So that's what I got.
Okay.
Of course.
Yes. Agreed. Also, the people are being as honest and in their truth as possible, because that is their reality. So to make kind of a mockery of their realness does not, I don't think it benefits anyone, or it doesn't benefit the play, because then you're just trying to throw satire on something that isn't satirical. And a cheap joke or a cheap trick isn't funny because you're trying to be. So it's better. It's just it's delivered better when it's true to the people.
Yeah.
Amanda?
I agree, and I think it goes to a broader acting issue that a lot of people sometimes run into, is when you play for the laugh rather than play the joke sincerely as the character saying the joke. They don't know that it's funny when they're talking necessarily. Like you're just yourself, and so then you talk, and then it may or may not be funny, but maybe what you're intending isn't supposed to be a laugh. So the more sincerely that people play the characters in any show, but especially this one, is playing it sincerely, and that's what makes it fun.
I think one of the biggest things with it is exactly that. I think we've all kind of stated on the fact that they need to be real people. And if you play someone like Florence with her doll as her son for a comedy, you lose the sincerity that's in there, like the real patience that she has for a doll. Audrey, I saw your hand up.
Yes. But I think my favorite kind of example of this idea is when Fairy comes down and she's telling everybody that there's a fire upstairs, and everyone's like, this is ridiculous, like that's funny, and she's like, no, this straight up. But then like nobody listens to her. She's just sitting in the corner just continuously like, there's a fire. And then I love the bit where is it Titus smells smoke on her? She's like, well, finally, like someone is clearly I forget who it was. But it's such a, like, if you're like, hi, look at me over here, it's like it doesn't work, right? The pureness, the innocence of it is the best.
Josue, and then Andre.
I think what was really fascinating, because it seems like they all collectively kind of like built their own world in the cloisters, and it got complicated at the end, I guess, with the outsiders coming in, and also with kind of like what Audrey was talking about when, you know, Fairy smells smoke and everybody's kind of ignoring her, or not smell smoke, saying there's a fire and everybody ignoring her. You know, everybody or most people kind of told Miss Savage, like, oh, that's what's wrong with her and we just accept that. That's what's wrong with him and we just accept that. Which I thought was like kind of like twisted in a way where like it's almost like you know, what's the phrase, like, you know, fish don't see water, where like they see there's something wrong with everybody, but they don't realize that, you know, there's something wrong with them, or wrong may not be the right adjective there, but like the reason for their being there.
Yeah.
I thought that was like really fascinating.
Similar to what everyone else is kind of saying, I think that if you overplay this, you do make a mockery of this, but then you miss the beauty of the piece and what people already do in real life. We tend to kind of make mockeries of people with disabilities, at least before mental health got really, I don't want to say trendy, but it became such a more mainstream thing. People talk about it now. It's not as taboo as it once was. So exaggerating this it plays into a stereotype about mental health, and it also just really takes away from the beauty of the piece. And I'm glad that he puts these kind of directions and instructions in the beginning so you understand how heavy this is, and again, for actors, the job that you have to do. Here, you want to play it as real as possible, so you don't confuse the audience, so to speak.
Mariam, and then Amanda.
Yeah, like going off that, how he made it so clear in the beginning, I think does so well to like make the point of this so much stronger, because in a sense, like the way the cast is sort of split in the scenes, like the group that she's with versus once her family comes in, and how they're usually separate till the end where everybody's kind of like mingled in, how like those two groups of people are like juxtaposed in my mind, whereas like the group that's like, you know, how we stereotype people in like places like that being crazy and such are actually so much more in tune with her and make so much more of an effort to get to know her and accept her and to just sort of be around her and like enjoy her presence in that sense, whereas her family is so really only engaged with her for money or like superficial things, or putting her down for wanting to be an actress or like whatever it is. So I just think, yeah, how playing that more real versus her family being so over the top and ridiculous really serves the purpose of the play.
Yeah. Amanda?
I also think that if you played it for laughs for any of these characters, you lose the human connection to them. Because when they describe what the characters like are there for, like Jeff thinks he has a scar on his face, but then you learn that it's not a physical scar. He thinks it's there from the war. That's a really human, relatable thing for many people, PTSD. Barry, if you play her for laughs, like, oh, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, please, I need attention, and it's like comical. But if you play it sincerely, like at her core, she wants to be loved and told that she's loved from whatever happened in her life. The description of her character is that she's very plain and mumsy, but she wants to be this beautiful princess movie star-ish type glamorous person. And I think that that's something the audience can relate to rather than just laughing at them saying like, you seem crazy. These aren't like, I'm not crazy. Like, you know, you feel like, oh wow, she just at her core, Fairy just wants to be loved. That's so sad. Like, you know, but sincere.
Rob, I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, with what Mariam and Andre said. Like, you know, it's almost as if like the beginning is a warning to actors, like, okay, like you're playing people in an insane asylum, like don't go crazy, like just trust the relationships between the characters, which is what Amanda was saying. You know, that their qualities are going to shine through in comparison, in, you know, with a juxtaposition with the family, like Mariam said. It kind of this play made me think of the movie 28 Days with Sandra Bullock. I don't know if anyone's seen it, where she goes to, you know, like rehab, and, you know, in the beginning, all the other people have all these quirks and she judges them and they're kind of made to look a little quirky and weird, and but they're also like very supportive and encouraging and sweet to Sandra. And you only really see that until her, you know, fiance comes back and he's like this complete asshole who doesn't care about how she's actually doing. And you see that with the family when they come in, Titus and Samuel and all of them, they're immediately like, what did you do with the bonds? You're making us look foolish, not at all caring about, you know, like where their mother actually is. But all of the other people, they're interested in her dreams and, you know, what she was doing in her past life. And, you know, I mean, they all kind of take that in a very positive and like encouraging way. And I think it's really sweet. And if it's like everyone was saying, if it's played, you know, in a joking, mocking way, it comes off as kind of silly and like the playwright says, meaningless. But when it's not, it comes off as like very sweet and genuine. And I love that.
How does John Patrick contrast the guest with the outside world? You know, and Rob touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the other examples he uses to contrast those two? So one of the things I think of with that is how when Mrs. Savage tells her kids where she's hidden the money, the 3 separate locations, like that is definitely something. I mean, if you jump the fence and go and pull up petunias in the White House, that's definitely something that can get you committed. But because we see how honest the other characters are, the guests at the cloisters, we know they wouldn't take that chance. They would see how ridiculous that looks to take that opportunity. There was a level of communication, I think, between the guests that isn't there with the rest of the Savage family.
Yeah, one thing that popped in my head immediately was the reference to like what's going on in the media and the newspapers, as if like that is a representation of like the real world, the outside world. And it's like, because things don't look great in the newspaper, they're not great in real life. And so, you know, referring to the outside, I feel like that's interesting how, you know, because we all know like the media is just like, they love craziness of rich people especially, but any sort of craziness going on, to me there's a thing that I don't know.
I do think it's really interesting how media is used in here to differentiate inside the what do we call it? It's not a asylum, but from cloisters versus the outside world. There is also, because these people, the savages, they're all, I guess, famous people. There's this huge concern about appearance. You're making us look like crazy. You're making us look like savages. They're talking about us in the media. They're talking, and inside cloisters, they really couldn't care less about their appearance, really. I'm trying to remember everyone's names. Hannibal, he doesn't care that, he believes wholeheartedly that he can play this violin like a master, and does not care what anyone else really thinks about it. He's so, he stands center stage, and I'm going to play this violin, and you're going to like these really great 2 notes that I play over and over again. Who was the one with the baby? Florence?
Florence, yeah.
The baby? Even though, how we mentioned before, this is their reality, this is their truth that they're living in, but they're not concerned with how everyone else is perceiving the reality within the room together. However, when you have the savage children, they're just so upset with their mom about, you're making us look bad, the media. And it's, again, a tool that's being used here to kind of separate these 2 worlds. So I thought it was really interesting how that the newspaper is really, poignant.
Mariam, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I raised my hand, but I was really just going to repeat, everything she was saying right now, just about how, I think there's something to be learned. What's that? What do they call them?
The cloisters.
The cloisters. Yeah, the cloisters. And there's something to be learned from them, and sort of their ability to accept their reality, for better, for worse. I say for the better, and just be find a sort of contentment within their lives, without judgment, and that acceptance they have of themselves, versus everybody outside of that, including the family, who are so caught up in this world of reality and representation. My character was so upset about what the papers are saying and things like that. And when you let things like that influence your perception of yourself, or I don't know, I guess your feelings or mood in really any sense, you're sort of losing in a sense, just because, ultimately all that it ever comes down to, or what really matters, is your judgment of yourself, and if you're okay with yourself and things of that sense. But yeah, so pretty much I just copied what she said, but my thought is done.
Well, I always like that Lily Bell was married 6 times, and one of them was to a prince, apparently. It's just man, she gets around, and somehow she still needs this money.
Yeah, I hate Lily Bell, but part of me wants to be Lily Bell. I don't know.
Audrey, I saw your hand up, and then Andre.
Yeah, to piggyback on the newspaper thing, what she was saying, it's kind of funny, because then at the end, it's the thing that releases everyone. It's it was the trick. The thing that went up in flames, but yeah, and everyone just had to walk away.
It was great allegory there.
Yes. That's the word. That is the word.
Andre?
It's similar to what everybody else is saying, but I kind of looked at the cloisters being a place where you could be maybe your true self, and then the outside world is where you put on the show, and you are more worried about people's opinions, and you dress yourself up in a certain way, and you go after things that like money and status and power in the outside world. But when you get home, I don't know if maybe I should be a part of the cloisters now after I say this, but when you're alone with yourself, I talk to myself sometimes. I have conversations with myself, or you have certain thoughts where you're wow, if I said this out loud, I'd be crazy. Or if I told this to someone, I'd, be crazy. But like I just saw vulnerability at the cloisters, and they were being vulnerable with each other, and maybe that's because they all were dealing with something. But I thought the difference between the outside and the cloisters were just, when you're outside, you're wearing some sort of mask, and when you're here, you're kind of you're looking more inside. That's why I took the difference as.
Josue and then Shia.
I thought the last bit of the stage direction was really interesting, kind of like resonating with what Andre says when, what does it say? It says she being savage walks slowly to the door and goes out, leaving behind the lost people in their eggshell world. The idea of like being in this eggshell world, I think I found it more relatable with I found that expression being much more relatable in, I think, our interpersonal relationships and how we treat each other. Because we never want to, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I think it's a good thing. It's how we take care of each other as friends, as like close people in a close society, or not even society, just as close friends. Like we are so encouraging, and we want to keep those eggshells intact. And I thought at the end of it, I was like, oh, that's, regardless of what the cloisters is or made up of what kind of people, we do that too. So, what does that really say about us, kind of thing?
Shia?
So kind of maybe a little off, but just another, but a little similar to what Josue was just saying. I know, I'm doing too much. You guys can edit this part out, please.
No eggshells here. No eggshells.
No eggshells. No, what I was going to say, another difference.
It's going to be the promo.
Oh, dear God, no.
I'm not the only weird one.
We're going to Kirk Franklin stomp on this.
Oh, shit. So another difference that I liked was also in the end, with the way that they were saying their goodbyes. The savage children were just like, okay, the money's gone. I really don't care about this lady. And the kindest thing that we can do for you, our mother, is not put you in a public institution. We're being so generous. Bye. They couldn't give a single damn about this lady because their main concern was the materialistic possessions, because of, like how you guys were saying, in the outside world is all about perception and about the roles that you're playing in society. And, you have a senator, a judge, and let's face it, a floozy. But they're more concerned about the materialistic aspects of the outside world. And then you have these very, I thought this was very beautiful, but you have these relationships, these bonds that developed, and they are giving her these little trinkets from around the institution that they're just fine because they just want to give her something, and they just want to, they don't want to say goodbye, but they've nurtured this relationship, and they're like, they're caring about her and making sure that they send her off in a positive way and make sure that she's okay when she leaves these stores, and here's some gifts to remember us by, kind of thing. And I thought it was a really beautiful, I thought it was a very touching moment, and such a beautiful way to really show the difference between these two worlds, where it's like, here's an institution where we in the outside world are like, oh, everyone there is crazy and mental and useless, but here people who are vulnerable and have these beautiful bonds and are caring and nurturing, versus the people who are her family who couldn't even be more cold. Like, they were so heartless when they left, and I felt like that was such a huge difference in the way these two worlds interacted.
I would like to say something. I 100% agree with everything you just said. And I want to say, like, somebody said something to me like, your family is your family, but also you pick your family as well, and your family picks you as well. So even, yes, you're like, you have, when I say your family is your family, yes, you have your blood relatives, and like you may with them hard. Like, I don't know if I can curse. Can I curse? No. Whatever, I did already. You with them hard, but
Go ahead. Just lost
I
my
mean,
money
it is what it is. But it necessarily might not serve you or your purpose or your spirituality or whatever it is in your soul, and it just is what it is. But your like, then on the other aspect of, when I say your family is your family, it's the people that you pick, that you pick them, they pick you. You guys go through things, you grow together, you live through your lives together, and you have that bond and that unit together, and that's extremely important. And I think that was highlighted so much, so beautifully so, in this play as well.
I feel like I have a lot of points that I jotted down as we were talking, so I wouldn't forget them. But I always. But I think I absolutely agree. Like, you choose your family and you choose your friends and your support group and all of the things so that you can be your truest self and most comfortable, and you don't have to edit in that way. For example, I was like trying to record an audition earlier for a voiceover thing, and I submitted to it, and it was for a Marilyn Monroe impression. And in my head, I was like, I can do a Marilyn Monroe impression, because I thought about it a lot in my head in the past for no reason. And like, because for a while there were a lot of movies and shows that had Marilyns, and I was like, I could do that. But I never out loud while people were around like tried it. And so then I'm like in my room in my little microphone, like, super self-conscious, but trying to like get the thing out. And I think as actors, it's such a fine line of being your weirdest self and your most authentic version of yourself. And the outside world may look at you and be like, wow, Amanda's really weird. But my family, my chosen groupies, think that I'm really funny. And I think that's really lovely. Like, the weirder that I seem to be, the more you guys like me. And hopefully the more other people would like me, and, such a fairy may, and see the good in that. And then I also wanted to bring up how much kinder the world would be, like, if we all, instead of judging or having these standards for outside appearance, be it on social media, where you have to only post the happy things or nice things to brag about yourself when maybe you're not doing so well. And you look at everyone else's stuff and you think everyone else is winning or doing better than you, but they're not. But how much nicer it would be if, instead of, when Audrey makes a fart noise, we look at her like, ugh, so weird. And we're just like, LOL, people like fart. Like, or any weird thing that people do, if we were just like nicer about it instead of just like being so cold and judgy,
That went left.
It did. Anyway, there's chats all about it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that was, the other half that I didn't get to, and what I was saying, kind of going back to what Ethan was asking about, in terms of like, how the different classes were being shown, where in the cloisters, everybody kind of like maintained the eggshell and like, never let on, never like, was never negative and never really insulted people, only maybe on the side, but that's it. Whereas, oh my God, whereas with the family,
best episode already.
Savages, they all they did was put each other down and really attack each other. And I think that was a way that the playwright really showcased the difference between the two.
Rob, you had your hand up?
Oh, it was just, along the lines of that. I mean, I'm glad Amanda brought it up, because it sort of like jogged my memory of a thought that came to me early on in the play. It was along the lines of the chosen family point that was already made, but just that idea of like allowing somebody to be themselves fully. And it just made me think of like a personal experience. And, I often think about, like, for me personally, acting was one of those things that like allowed me to open up, where I'd been like trying to conform so hard, right? And then suddenly was like, wow, I'm in this like amazing space. And I think of that with my dad, because he grew up in a very conservative household and is so strange. And it's just like, if that quirkiness was just encouraged, if that like weird energy about him was encouraged, he'd be so strange to the outside world. He's already strange to me. I mean, but he'd be so strange, but it was like, that would be him. Like his spirit would fully be out in this way. And like, that's what you get in the cloisters. That's what they're encouraging of Mrs. Savage for her to be, because clearly her children do not want that. They want her to be this like, to be very conforming and to be worried about everyone's appearance, like we've already kind of mentioned. So I think that's great.
Manny, I saw your hand go up.
Let me unmute. Yeah, it just shows you how the not normal people, according to the play, they're just like the kindest person. They just like support you, and they're like, yeah, we want you to do good. And then you see the normal people, how society thinks you're normal, but then you're not kind. You're just like judging each other and bringing each other down. So I like that it shows like, no, you don't have to be normal. Like, just be weird, and like everybody's gonna be weird, and we're gonna be better.